All right, college basketball, man, is in full effect. I mean, we are here. It is January 31st, so college basketball, we're right in the thick of it. What teams can make a run? What teams can get to a Final Four, get to an Elite Eight? What teams are a little bit overrated, and who's that surprise team out there? We're going to take a look at that today and discuss all things college basketball. So again, we've got our resident college basketball expert, Bryant Northern, former University of Louisville basketball player. How's it going, Bryant?
Man, it's going great as always. It's a pleasure to be on here with you, Big B.
All right, man. So take us a little bit. I know we've talked a little bit about college basketball, different teams, and that sort of thing. Who, in your eyes, this year are some of the teams that you think can actually win a national title, get to a Final Four? Who are some of those teams?
At this time of the year, I think we're really looking at maybe 10 teams, maybe 11 or 12 max.
Okay,
It's hard for me to say, oh, there's really only three or four teams that can win it. I think there's so much parity. We saw
absolutely.
last year with Kentucky getting beat by St. Peter's. We saw Purdue losing to them in the second round.
Yep.
North Carolina, who wasn't picked to be there. So for me, I don't want to finalize a group of three or four teams that are really the targets. I'd like to look at a bigger spectrum of maybe 10 to 12 teams. But I love what Houston is doing. I think one of
Hmm.
the most underrated and underappreciated coaches in all of college basketball is Kelvin Sampson. I think
Yep.
what has done at Houston is amazing. Um, 10 to 15 years ago, they probably were considered a mid-major. Now
Absolutely.
what you're seeing is they are the real deal. Nobody wants to play them. Nobody would want them to join their conference. They could go bigger and join the Big 12 or some other
They're about
conference.
to.
And you know what? None of those teams are looking forward to having them there.
Absolutely not.
So that right now is my team right now that I'm just like really excited about. I think last year they lost to Villanova, and you could see they were just like one piece away, maybe a little bit more depth, maybe shooting a little bit, and now there's no holes in their game. This
Right.
team is legit. This team is battle tested. The coaching is there, the size is there, the leadership is there, the experience is there. This for me right now is probably the most dangerous team in college. This is grown men. This is the big boys, and
Yeah.
I think they are the best team to win it. Now, I also like to look at Alabama, who's the real deal. I still like Purdue. I like Tennessee. I really like Arizona's size.
Hmm.
I think Kansas and Kansas State are in that mix.
Yep.
I'm not going to overlook those guys. But right now, my front runner is definitely Houston.
The one thing about Houston and other colleges, kind of in that other tier of conferences, the American Conference, the Big East, those are big time basketball schools. There's a few of those in that. And in basketball, everybody talks about Power 5 when it comes to football. And that's great. But when you're talking about basketball, there's more than just these Power Five teams. Like Houston can compete. If they were in the Big 12 right now, they're at the top of the league. If they're in the SEC, Big 10, Pac 12, they're at the top of the league. And that's the difference in basketball and football. In football, that isn't the case. Not that they can't get there or every once in a while they can compete. In basketball, man, these schools are good and can compete at the top levels. They can absolutely do it. And you're right about Kelvin Sampson. Kelvin Sampson gets held back and talked about because of what happened at Indiana, which are not even violations anymore. Those are the things that he did. They're literally not violations. What he did, you don't get in trouble for anymore. So it wasn't all this craziness that he was doing. It just, he gets a bad rap for that. Not to mention, I mean, don't get me wrong, he cheated and he cheated when you weren't he was doing things when you weren't supposed to do it, and IU took a beating for that. Having said that, though, the guy can coach basketball. He can
Oh, he's the
coach
real deal.
basketball. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He went to Houston. He has built Houston up to what it is now. You mentioned it before about going to a better conference. They're literally going to be in the Big 12 next year, and they're going to be able to compete right up there with Kansas State, Texas. even though Texas will be leaving soon. It just they will be at the top of the league when it comes to basketball.
Coach
Talking,
Sampson is the real deal. When he 2 summers ago, when my son was playing his last year of AAU, we're in this big Under Armour tournament,
uh
the
huh,
best teams in the country. U of L's there, coaches from IU are there. There's a lot of big time coaches there. There was representatives from Duke. When Coach Sampson walked in, heads turned. People
yeah,
knew he was there. It wasn't just, oh, there's Houston. It was, hey, look over there, there's Coach Kelvin Sampson.
right.
So I think that he is definitely deserving of
Well, within his
a award.
peers, that's how you know when a guy can really coach is because when you are respected within your peers, then you have should have the respect of everybody because they know who can coach and who
Oh,
can't
absolutely.
coach, and everybody respects Kelvin Sampson and his coaching ability. Now, moving on, as far as other teams that are out there, I mean, you talked about Purdue. Look, I like Purdue. Um, I like Matt Painter. I think he's a good coach. I just don't think they're built to win in the tournament. I just don't. I think they're going to run into somebody that can shoot and that are athletes, and they're going to beat them, which is literally what happened to them last year. The difference is they had a Jaden Ivey that took care of some of those things, and even though he had a bad game and they ended up getting beat, I just think they're going to run into another team like that, and it's not going to be some powerhouse that we're talking about. That they're going to run into somebody that has a good shooting night, and they got some athletes that can defend and can rebound, and they're going to beat Purdue. I just don't like how they're structured to win in the tournament. I could be wrong. There's going to be people that say that I'm crazy, but that's what I believe. I mean, I've seen it too many times. I've seen this thing from Purdue too many times, man. And it's not that I'm rooting against them. I just don't think they're built to win in the tournament.
I think the number one thing, and I don't you they've played athletes. They are not they
It's
they are
not the
not a
tournament though,
team.
man. It's not the
I tell you
tournament. That's
this much, Big
different.
B. Here's my issue with Purdue. If Zach Edey gets in foul trouble, if he can't play 32 plus minutes, they're in trouble. I
Yeah.
think the secret sauce is not only Edie, but it's that freshman Braden Smith. Him and Fletcher Lawyer, that freshman backcourt, have not looked like freshmen. Braden Smith is as good as any guard in the Big Ten. He and Fletcher Lawyer are playing phenomenal. But Zach Edey is the secret sauce. At 7'2", 7'3", 7'4", somewhere in that range, he is a matchup nightmare. He's starting to make free throws. He's getting double-digit rebounds. He's effective. He stretches the floor. He's giving those shooters options because he's drawing double teams night in and night out. If
Right.
he ever has a bad game or if he ever gets in foul trouble, I think Purdue is done. Now, if he doesn't, they can win it. He is an anomaly. He is that X factor. And I also would say Braden Smith as well. He's one of my favorite guards in college basketball. But Zach Edey is the secret sauce. If he can stay in a game healthy, out of foul trouble, they can go as far as he can take them. And that's all the way. But if he gets in foul trouble, he rolls his ankle, something like that happens, you could see Purdue losing in that second, third round, kind of like what they did last year.
Gotcha. Moving to some other teams, I know you mentioned Kansas and Kansas State. Um, Kansas State, to me, is one of the most athletic teams in the country. The way that they play, the style that they play, look, they can stay in games because they're super athletic and they defend. They had a couple of games where some teams got away from them, but they ended up winning those games. The Baylor and Texas game, both super high scoring games, but K State was making their shots. And we've seen them in games that they don't make shots. They're still able to stay in those games and win. They defend. They're extremely coached. I mean, I should say they're coached extremely well. Jerome Tang has done an outstanding job putting this basketball team together. Look, I'm biased. I went to K State. I understand that, but I also know good basketball when I see it. And K State's got a really, really good basketball team
This
this
is the
year.
best Kansas State team that I have maybe ever seen. When Beasley was there, they were solid, they were tough. This team is different. This team has got swag, man. You see these guys, they're fearless. They got a legit point guard. Their wings are tough. They got size. They have athleticism. Think about the play when they beat Kansas. It was on an alley oop. The
Yeah,
last play of the game that won them the game
yeah,
was a spin off alley oop, right on
yeah,
money, dunking on a guy's head for the
yeah.
game winning bucket. I mean, this is not your typical. Kansas State team.
No.
This is one of the most athletic, balanced, aggressive. They're kind of mean and nasty, man. This They
Yeah.
gave me a little bit of like Cincinnati vibes when Bob Huggins was there.
Yeah.
They talk a little
They
trash.
play
They
hard,
dunk on you.
man. They play
Man,
hard.
this is the best Kansas State team that I've seen. So I think they're as good as anybody in that Big 12, and I think that they are built for a run.
The,
Absolutely.
and and the thing about it is kind of what you said. They're built for a run because again, everybody can have a bad shooting night. It's what do you do when you have a bad shooting night? Well, they've got
Mm,
athletes that can get inside, make easier shots, but they defend. And if you can defend, you can win the games when you have bad shooting nights. It's just, that's how
absolutely.
you win in the tournament is can you defend? And they can defend. Kansas, on the other hand, look, it's Bill Self. They went through a rough patch. They lost 3 games in a row, and then they go to Kentucky and win. I mean, it's just Bill Self, and I know Kansas State fans are going to be mad at me for saying that, but the guy is the best coach in college basketball. He just is. He just is, and they're going to get it figured out. They've got a talented team. Now, I don't think if they had to play against a team that's got size, that could be a problem. I go, but they've got a talented basketball team this year, man. And, they've got guys that played last year when they won the title, and they got Self to get them ready. I think Kansas can be very, very tough down the stretch. I put them in the same realm as like an Arizona. Again, tough, athletic.
I like that
UC,
Arizona team.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like this
I like
Arizona team.
Arizona, man. I like Arizona. I don't think obviously they're out west, so nobody talks about them, and nobody watches the games because they come on late. But Arizona is really, really good.
Well, let's talk about Arizona for a second. Then I'm gonna
Sure,
backtrack to your Kansas statement. Arizona's being talked about. They had a game. Trace Jackson Davis has been phenomenal. I live in Indiana, and Indiana fans are going crazy over what he's doing right now. The
right.
last 3 or 4 games, he's probably been maybe the most impressive big man in the country. Trace Jackson Davis. He's going to end up finishing top 4 or 5 probably all time in Indiana scoring
Scoring,
in the
right,
history of that team and conference. So he's going to do some great things there. He looked bad against Arizona. Arizona exposed him. Those bigs were so strong and athletic, they made him look small. So Indiana fans remember Arizona. So if you're in Indiana or if you've played Arizona, the other teams know. So I think Arizona nationally have drawn respect from everybody. They are going to be a problem in the postseason. They have, even at the guard spot, they're 6'3", 6'4". Those guys are built, man. Those guys have bodies. I like that Arizona team. Now to
right.
backpedal a little bit back to your Bill Self comment, Bill Self is one of the best coaches. He is not the best coach in college basketball. He is one of the best coaches. Now, yes, he won last year, and it's also Kansas. He gets some of the elite players. You take good coaching, you take good players, and you combine that, he wins. But Izzo can say the same thing. When he gets really good players, he wins. Patino has done that from U of L to UK. He's had really good players, and he's a really good coach, and he wins. Do I think Bill Self is unanimously the best coach in college basketball? That's debatable. I say he's top 5, top 6, but I'm not going to
Top
throw out,
five or top
oh,
six?
he's not unanimously the best coach. No. He
Who's
wins
better
when he
than
gets
Bill
the best
Self?
players.
Well, that's
Huh?
part of it. That's part
Well, I
of
mean, so does
in
Izzo.
college. But in college, getting the guys to your campus is part of it. And if you're
Right.
able to do that, hey, I'm better than you are at doing that. Sorry.
I tell you what, Kelvin Sampson is going in that list for me. Izzo is
Well,
going in that
sure.
list for me. There's some other guys in there that I think. I mean, Bruce Pearl's the real deal. Matt Painter is starting to get in that conversation. At least top 7 or 8 coaches in college basketball. I
Now,
mean, I can't just say Bill Self is
but
unanimously
you
number one.
also cannot say, and your tongue should fall out for say putting Matt Painter in the same class as Bill Self. Come on, Brian. Come
Well, hold
on,
on.
man.
I'm talking top 10 as a whole. When you start looking, look, I also think when you win with less, there's something about that. When like what
There
Kelvin
is.
Sampson has done at Houston is amazing. It's not Kentucky, it's not Kansas, it's not Duke. We're talking about a school that when I was playing was a mid-major. They were Conference USA. Now they're what, American? I mean, we're talking about what he has done with Houston. He's made them a top 2. Go online if you're a betting person. Go online right now, anywhere on your DraftKings or any of your betting apps. Houston's the favorite to win it all. Even Vegas knows. When was the last time Houston was a favorite to win anything? That
Well,
is a credit
it's
to
not
Kelvin Sampson.
saying
So
It's true. Kelvin Sampson is a good coach. We're not saying that he's not a good coach. There's lots of great coaches out there. I
I'm
shouldn't
making
say
the
lots of
debate
them,
that
but
I'm
there's
just making
great
the debate
coaches.
that Bill Self isn't. I like a lot of other people. I like Mark Few. I like a lot of coaches in that conversation. I would like to debate it, but I'm definitely not saying that Bill Self is unanimously the best coach in college basketball. I can't go there. But is he one of the best, top 5 or 6? Do I think Painter? Look, Purdue's #1 right now with 2 freshmen. He took Braden Smith, whose biggest offer was Belmont, gave him an offer. Now he's one of the best guards in the Big Ten. Look at what he did with Jaden Ivey. Look at Edie. Who else was recruiting Edie? No one knew of Edie. Now look at him. He's one of the best and dominant big men in the country. Matt Painter's onto something here. Is he a top 10 coach? Maybe. I would like to put that up for debate. I'm not saying he's in the Bill Self category. He's never won a championship. He's never been to a Final Four. But when I'm talking about right now, today, who are the top 10 coaches, I'm throwing Matt Painter in that top 10. Bill Self is in debate for the best, but I'm not ignoring Izzo, Mark Few Gonzaga, and some of these other coaches like Bruce Pearl and guys like that. I think there's a lot of good coaches, even
There
a
are.
Pitino at Iona. If he ever gets back to a high major, I think we're going to still see that he's still got it. So, with that being said, I think that unanimously there isn't probably a best coach right now. I think it's up for debate, but your argument was fair.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, I think that Bill Self has proven over time, and we can get off the subject, but Bill Self has just proven himself over time and time again to be the best coach in college basketball. And if you don't want to say the best, there ain't three better than him. I can
Okay,
assure you
that's
of
fair.
that.
Hey,
You
that's
know,
that's that's fair. That's
so
fair.
but moving on, as far as teams, look, here's a team that nobody's talking about that's mid-majorish, Memphis. Everybody was
Mm,
talking about, oh, well, Penny Hardaway can't coach and, he's not doing a good job. I'm like, have you seen Memphis? First of all, just look at their record, number one. They're like 17-5 ago, and they beat Auburn, okay, and played Alabama tooth and nail. So we're talking about a good basketball team. Now I know people want to think that Penny, and I was one of those people. I'll admit, last year I'm like, man, this dude has no business coaching. What is he doing? But he's got him playing good basketball, man, and nobody's talking about Memphis. I just have a feeling they're going to be one of those teams. They get into the tournament and they beat some teams that we don't think. I think they have an outside shot to get to the Final Four. I'm not by any means saying they're one of the best teams in the country. What I'm saying is, there's always somebody that we don't think will get to the Final Four. I think
mhm.
Memphis is one of those teams.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah,
Well, I do remember 2 years ago, people were saying he had no business at that position. He was in over his
right.
head.
I was one of
Fast
those.
forward now, he belongs.
He
He's
does.
gotten better. He's gotten better. Well, he had good players then, but he's gotten better players, and his system is starting to work itself out. He's worked
Correct.
out some kinks, and they look legit, and he looks like he belongs. So Memphis is a team that you think could sneak in there. Let me ask you this: could Indiana or Kentucky, are they
Abs-
better right now than
Absolutely.
Indiana?
100%. 100%.
Okay.
People, Mike Woodson is a good basketball coach. I know we've talked about that before. The guy knows basketball, and Kentucky is getting it together at the right time. They are.
If I was just going to say on your point is if Memphis is a sleeper to make a run to a Final Four, then we have to throw in the IU
Oh,
and the
sure.
UK
Sure.
because I
But
think they're
people
just as good as
but
Memphis.
people talk about Indiana and Kentucky, because they're blue bloods. I mean, people talk. I was just bringing up Memphis because nobody's talking about Memphis, and I think Memphis is having a good season. Now, they haven't played Houston yet, and they still have to play them twice, in the regular season. So we'll see because Houston is
Hmm.
really good. But I just think Memphis isn't getting the pub or the run that I think they deserve. And if it stays that way, they're going to surprise some people in the tournament. I just believe one of the reasons is kind of what you said. They got rid of some people that probably didn't buy in, some one and dones that he brought in there that were really good basketball players, but just didn't fit together or wouldn't work together. He got some of those guys out. He still has a really talented basketball team, and quite as kept, it seems like Penny has figured out a little bit as far as coaching wise. You can't just, okay, I got talent, let's throw them together and see how that
It's
works.
amazing what happens when
Doesn't
everybody
work.
buys in. Look at Amani
Yeah,
Bates. Amani Bates is at Eastern Michigan. He's had a 40 something point, 43 point game the other night.
And
but they
nobody
have a
cares.
losing record in the MAC. They have a
That's right.
losing record in the MAC. He could have been at Memphis.
Yep.
Obviously, he was a headache there, caused some disruption. There was some issues there.
Yep.
Now it seems like Penny's got some guys that buy in, and I think that is huge. Not only having talent, but having guys that buy in, which also
Absolutely.
makes me go back to Painter. Not a lot of five-star guys on that roster, but he has a
No.
system and guys buy in, and that's why they're number one in the country right now.
Again, I'm not bad mouthing Purdue. I'm not saying Purdue's not good. I'm not saying that they can't win. I'm just saying that's what I believe will happen because we've seen it before. Now, it's a new year. Things change, all that stuff. Uh, Guys get better, coaching gets better, matchups. But I just believe a matchup that Purdue's not going to like is one where they find a team that's big and athletic and they have a good shooting night. Now, you could say that about anybody, but the facts are is that that's going to give Purdue problems. They don't see that in the Big Ten. They just don't, man. There's not that team out there in the Big Ten because the Big Ten has a lot. First of all, they have one great team. That's Purdue. Purdue is great. The
Okay, fair.
rest, not great. Good, not great teams in the Big Ten. Are they the best conference? No, because the Big 12 is the best conference. Are they
Yes.
next? Maybe. I think the SEC is probably a little bit better, but they have a lot of good teams, and people will say they're the best because they'll get 9 teams in the tournament, and they will, and they should. But that doesn't make you the best. That doesn't
Right.
make you the best conference, and that's one of the things that I talk about Purdue is that they don't see what I'm talking about in the Big Ten. They're not seeing those type of teams. They may have seen one or two in the non-conference. They just haven't seen that, and that could cause them problems. But again, I'm not rooting against Purdue because I think they got a good basketball team. And heck, none of us have seen the last time that they were in the Final Four. I just want them to get to the Final Four just because you know how I like them and Indiana fans going back and forth, and
Look,
that's all
he's got.
Indiana
I think he's
fans
got to
just
get to an
rub it in
elite
their
eight. He's
face.
got. Look, I don't even think he has to get to a Final Four. I think he has to prove to his fan base he can make an elite eight first. He
Well, they
lost the
did
second
2 years
round.
ago, or was it 3 years ago when they lost to Virginia?
I mean, some argue that last year they maybe had the best team. They had
They
the best
did.
maybe athlete in the whole country with Jaden Ivey. I
They
actually
did.
like this year's team better because they don't have to rely on a guard so much as heavily as they relied on Ivy. But I'm going to
Exactly.
piggyback on your Memphis comment. Who else? Name another team that you think that no one is talking about that could make a run to a Final Four.
I wrote down a team, um, and again, they are. You can call them mid-major because they don't play football, but they play in the Big East, man. I just have a hard time saying that Big East basketball is not top tier basketball, man. I have a problem with that. But the team that we're talking about is Marquette. Marquette has a good basketball team. You know they're going to be well coached, with Shaka
Mhm.
Smart. Marquette is another team that's playing really, really good that nobody is talking about right now. I think they've got a chance to make a run. Again, matchups are everything. I just think Marquette is another team that's got a chance to make a run.
I like that pick, but I honestly, when I fill out my bracket, unless something changes, I won't have them going past the second round. Now, matchups are going to be important. I don't see them making a long run. For me, I've watched Indiana more this year than I've ever watched Indiana. I think healthy. I see what they've done without Race Thompson and Xavier Johnson. You could even argue that they're better with Xavier Johnson out of the point guard spot. Jalen Hood Shafino has found himself. Trace Jackson Davis has proven to be a top 3 or 4 big men in the country right now. I kind of like them to maybe make a run. I think they could be an Elite Eight team if they don't run into the wrong team. If they get a good draw in March Madness, I think they're going to be extremely dangerous. I just saw Texas get blown out by Tennessee, and I know they lost their head coach. I still think they're intriguing. I still think
Yeah.
Baylor has some intriguing
Yeah.
uh, guys on that roster. And then I think Tennessee, who's obviously ranked, I still like them. And I know when you think right now Final Four, their name hasn't maybe come up as much as it should, but I still think Tennessee is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with 100%. Here's another team that throw out at you, and they are ranked. They're ranked high. They play in a Power Five conference, and still nobody talks about them because of their playing style. Is Virginia? Virginia is
Mm.
another team. Now, the problem with Virginia, can they make enough shots? Because their defense just grinds on you and grinds on you. But if somebody's hot and they're making shots, it's the same thing with Virginia. Can they make enough shots to beat another team that is making shots? I believe
and
that they can do that this year.
and they have great coaching. Coach Bennett's a
Oh
top
yeah,
10 coach for me. So,
absolutely.
sometimes in the middle of that back and forth, I was thinking, who are some of my top 10? Now you bring up Virginia. Bennett's in my top 10. He's legit. He's the real deal. They play great defense. He's proven he can get there because at one time we were starting to scratch our heads and saying, hey, does this work? Because they couldn't score enough points in the tournament.
Yeah,
He finally won a championship with Kyle Guy, and we were like, okay, this style of play does work. Sometimes defensive teams struggle in the tournament because they also can't score enough points.
that's right.
They're used to playing a slow game, and when the game gets fast, they're out of their element. But I think Virginia is a team right now that could be dangerous in the postseason. Anytime
Yeah,
you get elite coaching like that and good defense, you're always going to be dangerous.
absolutely, absolutely. And again, they get kind of washed away because Clemson is actually leading the ACC right now, and so everybody's saying, "Well, the ACC is not any good," and it isn't. It's
No,
to
it's not.
me, it's the fifth. If you're just talking Power Five, I would even put them behind the Big East this year as far as basketball. It's just not good, man. It's not good at all. Um, but to say that, I think that Virginia is still a really, really good basketball team, man. I just do. So to wrap all this up, I appreciate you joining us again, man. It's going to be tough, man, and obviously we're going to talk several more times before the end of the season. But the teams that are going to make a run, in my eyes, are again somebody that's going to be athletic and can defend. It's always the same thing. I don't think anybody's just going to be outrun and outshoot you to win a title. Some years it's like that. I don't think that's one of these years. Just because the talent is so spread out, the parity, there's so much parity, and I'm not sure that this year is the top notch as far as basketball talent in college basketball. Just because one and done rules and all this, I don't think that the talent, there's no team that's just dominant that you're going to look at and say, "Oh, they're winning it." That's not happening this year. And for me as a basketball fan, I love that. I love that
I
aspect of it.
love it because you can't tell who's going to do what. You
That's
look in the
right.
top 25 rankings, you see Iowa State and you see Kansas State, and you're looking at teams you've. When was the last time we saw Iowa State ranked top 25? It's been a while.
Exactly.
So I think that when was the last time the Big 12 was the best conference in all of college basketball? It's been a
Right.
while. Now they've had national championship teams. Obviously, they won last year with Kansas, but from top to bottom, there's been a shift. You're
Yep.
seeing mid majors. You're seeing Houston be a Final Four top team. You're seeing the Big 12 with six ranked teams. I think five of them are in the top like 17. You're seeing a different shift, and I think it makes it fun. It gets old watching Duke and North Carolina and
Absolutely.
Kansas and Kentucky be the best team every year. It's wide open, and that's what makes it fun.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, I appreciate you, man, for joining us again. We'll talk to you again next week, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Big B. Have a good one, buddy.